evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
So we've been having the best time talking to owners of drive-ins with our owners series over the last couple of months. And it's not only been inspiring on a business owner level, but we've been getting such amazing feedback from the fans, as well as people involved in the culture, to the point where this thing's really spreading and taking off in a way that we only dreamed when we started this podcast. To give a little bit of a background, you guys know it. We were gifted with a voice when the Mahoning Drive-In Theater took off, and the revival of the drive-in culture and 35 millimeter really came to us. And we felt it important that now that the Mahoning has found its audience, it's our responsibility to turn that light and shine it on every other drive-in that has a similar story to the Mahoning. Because if you are still here after this many years in the drive-in culture, there is certainly a story there. And today we are joined by the president of the Silvermoon Drive-In in Lakeland, Florida, which was built in 1948, the year before the Mahoning Drive-In Theater was built. And we are certainly brothers from another mother. So welcome, Chip.
Thanks for having me on.
So excited. And we were talking about it before we hit record. We go down the rabbit hole and do some research for these interviews, and we are just in awe and have so many questions about your business, your layout, and kind of what it's like to run a drive-in in the heart of Florida. So why don't we go back to the beginning? Can you give us a little bit of history about the theater, when it opens, what's unique about it?
Yeah, I don't have too terribly much history. The stuff that you've probably read online, it's basically what I know. Unfortunately, it's pretty sad as far as drive-in history. And I think that's one thing that kind of excited me with this podcast, is doing a good job of preserving kind of history of the drive-ins, because at least I found that it seems like the Florida ones and the ones people that I was related to, the ones that they ran, they were kind of just built very quickly and were workhorses, and a lot of people came out, have a lot of memories there, and they closed, and it's just kind of lost history. So it's really cool to do this podcast and to try to preserve some of that history and talk about the future of the drive-ins. But all that being said, Silvermoon was built in 1948. 4 or 5 years after that, Lloyd Theaters, that's kind of where my family comes in. My grandfather worked for that company, and so that's how we first got involved in like the 52, 53, I think. And so that chain had about 70 screens while in its existence, mostly drive-ins, but also some indoors. So that is the Silvermoon. We also have, I don't know how much research y'all did, we have 2 drive-ins. There's one in Dade City, the Joy-Lan Drive-In, that we also operate 5 days a week. And it is a single screen theater. Yep.
This was a total segue question where it was like, we saw that you guys were connected to a chain in the past. And now that you guys have 2 theaters, we were curious, is that a chain situation, or it's just the family that owns both?
We just own both, and have Sun South Theaters, which is what I'm president of. We only have 2 locations. We have Silvermoon and Joy-Lan. We were formed in the mid-90s when they were selling off some drive-ins. So there used to be a couple other theaters that we operated or had some interest in, but those have since closed. One's the 28th Street Drive-In in St. Petersburg. I never was fortunate enough to see that one. That one closed in '99. I think at the end of the year, it was the least theater.
Well, the landscape in Florida, when it comes to drive-ins, was certainly rich, but just like every other state, every other place across the country, that's diminished pretty significantly. How many drive-ins are left in Florida? It's under 10, right?
Yeah, we have 4 operating now. We just had a couple closed pretty recently. So
Unbelievable.
yeah,
And to think that you own 2 of them.
it's
How
scary.
close together is the Joy-Lan and the Silvermoon?
About an hour. So the other 2 drive-ins in the state are only about an hour or 2 away. They're all kind of within probably 2 hours of each other, and it's a pretty large state, as far as driving. Yeah, so we're all pretty close.
That's amazing.
Florida. Yep.
Right.
There are a couple, the ones that closed, I think 2 of them still are going as swap shops, but they're not operating the theaters.
That seems to be seems to be the big thing in Florida, is there's a built-in kind of swap meet community with the drive-in culture. You guys run a swap meet every weekend?
Yeah, so we have at the Silvermoon, we are open Saturday and Sunday mornings for the swap shop at the Joy-Lan. It's only Sundays right now, but Sundays are definitely our biggest day. And right now, this time of year, we do really well with them. But when it starts heating up, which is probably it's kind of about heating up next month, they do thin out. Yeah, they thin out, and our northern friends go home, and so definitely our slower time during the summer.
Yeah.
It kind of works out with movies, because typically movies, busy time could be the summer. So
that's the season. So you are seasonal, I take it there, or are you year round?
We're 365.
Baby, I love it. Dedication. That's beautiful. Yeah. Same situation with Joy-Lan?
Yeah, so we're just closed Monday, Tuesday up there right now. But yeah, all year round.
That's amazing. So how much of your guys' draw is local versus the tourist season? Do you rely on tourists?
We get quite a few tourists that are kind of bored in Disney World, or maybe out of money visiting Orlando.
Well, the affordable alternative to Disney.
Exactly. Yeah, so they're over there visiting Orlando, or maybe they're in Tampa, which are 2 very large areas within like an hour of us. And so they kind of stumble upon us since we're the closest to Orlando. So
that's fantastic.
We get some folks from parts of Europe and stuff that have always just wanted to see an American drive-in. So yeah, you can.
It has an allure. It really does. It's an instant magical situation. Even when I'm sure you get it. You say, "Hey, I run a drive-in." They look at you like, "Well, who are you, Willy Wonka or something?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, oh, they're still open. Yeah.
Well, you kind of mentioned where you are as far as within the state, but what is your layout as far as, are you guys built up? Is it a rural situation? A lot of businesses around?
It's a pretty commercial area, I'd say, but there are a couple kind of trailer parks across the street and some houses behind us. It's kind of a mixed use, but definitely kind of leans more commercial. The road that we're on, probably about half a mile away, Publix, which is grocery chain down here. Yeah, so they have warehouses and corporate offices, and the road turns into George Chickens Boulevard, which was the founder of Publix. So we have a lot of that too, and so they're far enough away that there's never really a problem as far as noise.
What we find with the the theaters that are developed around, that they have to deal with the light pollution. Once the sun goes down, if your town is still alive, that's an issue for the drive-in.
Yeah, we definitely fight that at the Silvermoon. A lot of street lights from the trailer parks and stuff, and a pretty nice hotel was built across the street, but it's actually been no change. They're pretty chill and don't have many lights, and so there's some gas stations. So light pollution definitely a factor.
Oh yeah, always have to think about. Well, I'm so curious and kind of jealous of you in a way because your family owned a drive-in your whole entire life. What was that like? Did you have kind of fruit? Was it like your playground?
No, it wasn't. I remember going there as a kid, seeing movies like Star Wars, Toy Story, and Harry Potter and stuff like that. But I went as a customer, and I just waved at Grandpa working, and he kind of that was that. And I started working there probably about 15, kind of on and off in the box office on the weekends. That's how it
As soon
started.
as it
But
was legal, they put you to work.
yeah, well, yeah, no, it was definitely voluntary. It was kind of something, like the allure of hey, my family runs this drive-in. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I definitely want to be a part of that. But it was also just like, hey, it's a job, and I'm in high school and need some extra money. So
Right.
it definitely wasn't forced by any stretch. Because the hours for my parents, they stay kind of in touch with the drive-in, but they're not involved really in the day-to-day, so they understand the hours and some of the drawbacks that kids might not want to deal with as far as like working on the weekends. But they definitely didn't discourage me, but it was
So it
more
wasn't
kind of like a
necessarily mom and dad running the drive-in.
no.
You're taking you it was grandpa and you were
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, your grandfather still with us? Was it a situation where it was passed on to you?
Yeah, so he passed away in 2017. So I had the opportunity of working with him for, over 10 years, maybe 12 years or so, just kind of being involved in it. Like I say, at first it was super part-time as far as being in the box office, then kind of worked swap shop a couple of years later part-time.
Yep.
And then he kind of brought me into how he booked movies and how he thinks about just managing the place in general. So it was a neat.
He gave
Like I
it
say,
sounds like he gave you the tools to slowly
yeah,
open that route, even though
yeah,
I take it you weren't necessarily looking for this job. It just kind of
yeah.
hooked you along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And so what's also made it like easy and possible is that we have, a supervisor of both locations who's been with us for over 20 years. And like our manager of the swap shop, for example, like I used to close with her on Saturday nights, like, 15 years ago. So she's still, the manager of
You're
the
connected to
of the
everybody.
swap shop. So yeah, it definitely made it easier just because it's definitely a big help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you guys, I don't know if you mentioned this, are you guys multiple screens at this point? Are you a single screener?
Yeah, so the Silvermoon has two screens. It opened as a single screen, but the second screen was added in the mid 80s. So,
Right.
and then the Joy-Lan's a single screen, which, yeah, man, single screen, that's a
It's
struggle right
tough, right?
there.
It's
Yeah,
tough.
for sure.
I mean, we're in a whole other world because we run retro, we run 35 millimeter, and we know that we are in a total island on our own. But you are at the beck and call of Hollywood. The idea of playing something for multiple weekends and being locked into it.
Yeah.
When you have two screens, we're talking to the owners, it really sounds like it is so much easier to work a schedule and appease an audience.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%.
We were jealous of some of your guys' retro programming. It's very Mahoning of some of the stuff that you guys do with the kickback. How often do you guys do that? Is that something you reserve for Screen 2 type of thing?
So during the pandemic, we started experimenting with the retros fairly early on because we're in Florida, so we didn't. We got over the the COVID stuff rather quickly. So yeah, we were closed for about I think 28 days or so.
You're like about a second, and
yeah, in April.
Right.
So yeah, so you know, Actually, a drive-in in the state stayed open. Ocala Drive-In, he actually didn't close. But yeah, and so we weren't required to close, but I think we're classified as a like quick service restaurant if we really wanted to like get into that debate.
Good point, my friend.
But but we closed, and so the retro movies really worked there really well. But there wasn't much else going on, and so we definitely saw those fade as it went on. And there was a point where like it was kind of a toss of like, should we play a retro or should we play something like Tenet? And to be honest, like the performance was pretty similar. Some movies during that time weren't very good. So like the new releases, so it made it tough. But we'll do them now every so often, just when we kind of have a gap in films. Like, we didn't want to start something last week just because we went to the screen open for John Wick, and which leads into like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. So it was kind of a tactical move last week. The other problem was with spring break, there really hasn't been, you guys know this, there hasn't been much family content and kid content.
It is so hard. I have a 5-year-old, and I was saying this to Mark. It's, if you have a kid, there's really no options to go out. You get, you get the soft serve stuff every now and then, but it's not the blockbusters like they're feeding the schedule now,
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely frustrating because we have, I feel like people that were interested in those movies have continued to ask, when we're getting them, and it's almost like we might be losing that audience because we have nothing to give them. So that's why we were doing the Jumanji thing, and it did okay.
Right.
But the retros are kind of played out, at least for us right now. So
it's a really hard route. You have to almost resell people on why it's an experience at the theater because, we're in the age of streaming where you can push a button and bang, there it is on your phone.
Yeah, for sure. And we find that the first runs overall are getting people out compared to the retros. It was just one of those things, like I say, it was kind of a booking decision. We're trying to get something for the families during spring break.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love the idea that you can play with screen number 2. Do you book both theaters? Do you have a booker who books and connects the 2 theaters in any way? As far as the Joy-Lan.
Yeah. We book ourselves. The supervisor, James, like I said earlier, that's one of his responsibilities. Like, we'll talk about it each week and brainstorm ideas and have a booking map that we use.
Yes.
But we'll do most of that. We'll do that ourselves. And I know a lot of theaters have bookers, and we've always booked ourselves, and it's not too difficult. I mean, and it's nice to have the power to say yes or no to things, because we're all fairly familiar with our customer and the content coming out and stuff, so it just makes sense for us to do it ourselves now.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking to an outfit that books for themselves. I book the films for the Mahoning, and there's a real benefit to being on a first name basis with the people you're working with, especially when it comes to retro, because you're working terms, you're working rates, you're working different studios together. It's a job. And for them to know your name versus the guy who represents you and 40 other theaters is a little different.
Yep, for sure.
Before we jump into some of the layout as far as in the concession stand, things that you guys offer, Blacktop in Florida, what is up? Were you guys always Blacktop?
yeah. It's
just the way they do it there, that. Right?
Yeah, some of our some side too, we have some grass over there, but it's costly to kind of maintain because you got to do that. But especially for our swap shop, I think our customers and vendors like that, and it kind of
that makes sense.
Differentiates, pushing around their carts and stuff. It's
all gravel. So when we bring people in, vendors, things like that, it's like Or people call and say, "Hey, you handicap accessible?" It's like
Oh yeah.
we are 100% gravel. It's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult. So to have the ability to offer that, I'm sure it increases at least the reach of the fan base.
Yeah, I mean, would it be practical to do today? That'd be expensive.
Take it, it gets hot. I take it, it's hot.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, but mostly just like expensive. Just kind of doing it once or twice, or once or bi-yearly, just repairing it. It's just unbelievable how much it is.
I always think about how much money they must save on cutting the grass and maintaining the lawn and blah blah blah, and it's a whole other expense when you have that.
Yeah, because you it's not every day that asphalt pavers or whatever will do. I try to get quotes and walk them around, and they're just like, what the heck are we doing? They're used to just like regular parking lots and
right.
But I'm over here like with drive-in rows on ramps and stuff, so they probably charge me more for that. And it's all about volume as far as like pricing. So it's not like we have a ton of like when we need it. It's not like huge sections. Sometimes I do huge sections because it just costs so much less. It's just more efficient for them. But yeah,
it's more like a spread out constant maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So being that you guys have 2 screens, I take it shared concession stand in the middle of the lot. What's the layout?
Yep, so the snack bar's right in the middle of the lot with the booth, and that works out well for us. It's just it's not a cafeteria style. You just walk up to the cash register and then
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I mean, cafeteria style would be cool. I like the cafeteria style. When I go to other drive-ins, I like
self-serve has its benefits.
It seems to work well
for sure. But
yeah.
How many point of sales do you guys have? Is it like a huge line? Do you have only a couple there?
Yeah, so right now we're using 3. We did use 4, but we kind of find that having the cashier and having a runner on our busy nights with 3 is the most efficient. With 4, if you get people calling off or whatever, or like an unexpected rush, like it kind of the cashier has to kind of go grab everything, and it just becomes a problem. So we'll do 2 with a decent crowd. If we get pretty busy, we'll jump in, open a 3rd one. So 3 in there, and those work real well. Definitely switching over to the point of sale system about probably 4 years ago now has made it a lot easier in there.
Oh, nice. So what, did you guys used to have self-serve and then went to point of sale?
Oh, no. So we're point of sale. We always have been, but...
Oh, a new system. I see.
Yeah, new system, yeah.
Yeah, what do you guys run?
We had a really clunky one, VZ.
Oh, nice. Yeah. There's so many options now. We use Square. We find it works really, really well because a lot of our appeal is outdoor as well with vendors and activities outside. So it lets us take our register with us almost. So.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, I know. And Square is one that we're getting more and more requests for Apple Pay. And so
you got to pivot with the future, man. It's just every single day there's something else new where you're like, what is that? When did that become a thing? Yeah, it's all about shifting and finding a way to stay current and what people need and want,
Yep.
I do want to ask about what really sells for you guys as far as the food, but before we get to that, beer, bro. You guys offer beer. Like, what? Yep, that's a first as far as for our interviews here. Yeah. So what's the deal there? Do you guys have a liquor license between the 2 theaters? Is it something that you always offered?
Yeah, so it's just a package license. It's just at the Silvermoon, and we just do canned Bud and Bud Light. I actually got in trouble because during the pandemic, we are recording this so well, but during the pandemic, we had a couple of dance recitals where they'd film the recital at the studio and then they'd play it out there for the families and kids, and it worked out really well. But one of the things they requested that we sell was, wine. So I got with our distributor, and they had, those single serve canned wines.
Yes. Yep.
And so, I assumed that we would be able to sell them with the license we had, but we actually weren't able to. So as soon as they alerted me to that, because the state comes by like once a year, and they're like, "Hey, you can't be selling these." We're like, "What?" So we took them out, but it didn't make me too mad because they sold during those things and concerts, but during movies they weren't too big of a seller.
Wasn't
they were okay, but
I ran a vineyard actually before I came into the Mahoning, and I know all about the weird niche liquor license rules. It's so strange, and it goes state by state too. So what you can do, a state up, you're screwed in your state. It's so weird.
Yeah. So we've always offered the beer, and we don't, it's not a huge moneymaker, and we don't push it. I've thought about with years, like, oh, it'd be cool to expand this and have some more offerings.
Yeah, have a bar, all that. But you're inviting trouble.
Yeah,
You're inviting trouble. That's the downside,
Exactly. We have enough trouble. There's no use in bringing more. But and it's like one of those things. Like, yeah, I mean,
alcohol,
cool
drive-in.
Yeah, what can go wrong?
We were lucky enough to have branded beer come out last year from one of the local breweries, and we announced it on the page, and right away people were like, beer and drive-ins, I don't know if that's smart. It's like, we're not serving it. We're just, we just have a beer, but it's instantly, I think, just like a lot of things, it has a stigma built in. They don't think about the responsible people that, are able to drink.
For sure. And so, and like I say, we don't sell a ton of it. Every now and then we have to refuse people drinks they've bought too many, but it's kind of one of those things. And it's funny because they'll sell, like during kids movies, like we'll sell, probably that's our most popular genre for our beer.
Parents like, God, I gotta sit through Puss in Boots.
Yep. You'll see a lot of the dads come in. Yeah.
It's always a question that we get, I think it's built into the culture a bit, and especially now there's an appeal to come and hang out and do a little tailgating before movies start and get relaxed and all that stuff. But so do you guys have to train your employees on safe service and all that? I'm just going from my winery days.
Oh yeah. So they have to be 18 to serve it. But yeah, we definitely train and be overcautious as far as IDing.
Right.
Other than, like I say, I mean,
it's not a huge aspect of the business.
No, it's not a huge thing.
It just blew our minds because we don't get it.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things. It's kind of the bottom of the cooler, and we don't have big signs or anything or run crazy.
It's there if you need it. It's so strange because, I ran the major indoor theaters as well in the run, and you don't open a major theater or have an indoor chain that doesn't have a liquor license. It's part of the model now. So to see that kind of crossover with the drive-in culture a little bit. Yeah. But what really is the bangers for you guys as far as your big hits? Do you do any specialty items in that concession stand? What do people look forward to?
People look forward to our pizza.
Yeah.
It's a very thin crust pizza that we get the crust in and we do the rest ourselves. And that's it's a good, it's a really good pizza. People like that one. And of course, popcorn. We've done a couple specialties over the years, but kind of found that right now we're not doing one. We were experimenting with a couple things like pizza fries and stuff like that we might bring in and out.
It's all an enticer, it's, you see it everywhere. It's, look at this new item. And
the other really funny thing, it's a pizza, but I don't know, we call them fiestada pizzas. So they're the school pizzas. So back in the day, I guess
like Elio's
schools.
Yes.
And so we found those, and people loved them. Like on Facebook, it was such a big thing.
Talk about childhood and nostalgia, you know?
For sure, yeah. So those are a hit, and so I don't know, as soon as like they'll start to fade off. So we're like, okay, we'll do it as like a limited time offering. And as soon as we take them off the menu, we get so many requests for them. But we have them right now, but we've taken them off like one or two times just to kind of create some buzz about when they'd be back. But people have kind of figured us out because people will be like, oh, when are you getting those? And then someone on Facebook will like just say like, oh, you can get them from GFS or whatever. So yeah, I know people. That's just like the people that when you post the show times, they'll post the link of the pirated movie.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no line for some people, and that line is blurred. We used to have growing up the second run theaters where there was a nice gap there. And then it went to home video and then cable, and then you'd see it show up. But now it's like Megan came out yesterday and now it's available to stream. I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. We used to have one of those theaters in town that was built on one of the former drive-ins. And the company that owned the Silvermoon ran that drive-in too. And so it was a really big deal. I remember going up those films, the dollar movies or whatever. And
ours was $1.25. And you stuck to the floor as soon as you walked in. Clearly they cut every cleaning service to make that possible.
Yeah, so that's definitely a thing of the past. Because this, if you want to get something that's been out a couple weeks, you definitely don't do as well with it. Well, first off, they might not give it to you if it's only been 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, but by the time it's been out a month, it's kind of
the window's small.
To see it exactly.
You're like, hey, I got a week to sell this thing, and then next week it's like everybody and their mother either saw it or the word has gotten out that nobody cares, so nobody comes.
Yep.
Are you guys running Ant-Man right now? That's what I kept hearing in with the last one was like the hard drop off of Ant-Man.
No, we don't have Ant-Man. It never really did anything when it came out with us. We have Scream right now and Shazam. Yep. And Scream did pretty well. The last couple of years, it seems like we're starting to do well with the scary movies.
Yeah, Hollywood has gone that way. Like if you are somebody that can program horror, there's probably something every week for you to play fresh. It's one of those markets that actually is still able to rock and roll, unlike the family movies.
Yeah, it's done really well. At first it was like just around October, but then they started just putting them out wherever. But we're doing well with them.
They're a hit. They are a hit. And we finally got to see a legitimate drive-in movie release with Cocaine Bear. Was that a banger for you guys?
Yeah, it did all right. It did okay.
It's just so weird that in 2023 that's a marketable movie. That is such a drive-in 70s move.
Yeah.
To be like, we're gonna just smash these two things together and people will go out of the spectacle of it all.
Yeah, they did all right. Yeah, the problem with one of those scary movies or the horror movies is a lot of times they're so dark. I'm sure you guys have that problem too. Especially with I just remember Batman last year, but there's also
we bring it up. It comes up every time.
Yeah, I know that was terrible.
Every drive-in owner hates the Batman. He's the worst.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, do you find that there are many titles first run that deliver sort of beyond that? Now, what's your commitment for? Because I say this because most normal people have no concept of the fact that this is how it is. When you book a film from a major studio, what is the commitment that you have to take to that? How many weeks do you have to run something? And do you see any movies that in recent years that have performed well enough to keep them beyond that window?
It's funny, the ones that probably perform well enough to take them beyond the window are the ones we're not required to. But yeah, so it's, it can be anywhere from 2, sometimes 4 weeks. And so that's kind of made the decision tough with our single screen. As far as movies like Avatar and stuff like that, it's just like the the amount of time they want us to hold them just wouldn't be practical. Usually, if it's a 3-week picture of this, and then the single screen, like the third week is never really a thing. Like you got to do real well in the first 2 weeks, otherwise it's just not worth holding, and it's pretty sad. But I mean, we have had movies that we kept a while. I'm trying to think, there was
Top
one
Gun,
recently.
I know, was a biggie people bring
Oh
up.
yeah,
That was
Top
one
Gun.
for.
We played that a long time.
There wasn't anything else out at the time either.
So at that time, you could really lean
Yeah.
into it and be like,
Mhm.
hey, blockbuster right here.
Exactly. Yeah.
What does really well for you guys? What do you find brings the audiences?
It's definitely the family movies in summer that definitely keeps us going.
Yeah.
For sure, those big blockbuster films, and you know, like we got Fury 10 now. Like we'll do pretty well with that. And, you know, Minions and Jurassic and those type of really big movies.
Do you not do as well with the superhero stuff, or was that just an Ant-Man push?
It's definitely done. You could definitely tell. So I think Endgame, there was an Avengers like 2 years ago or 3, maybe
Yeah, the
longer
biggie.
than that now. Yeah,
Right.
it was huge, and like that was the earliest I've ever seen a sellout. But those have definitely tapered off with, I think everyone's experiencing that as far as the superhero films.
Fatigue, they say.
Yeah,
Superhero
fatigue.
fatigue.
And what's your car capacity there for each screen or total?
On side 1 at Silvermoon, we get to about 280. On side 2, about 170. At the Joy-Lan, we could fit. I never thought I'd see that place be full, but during the pandemic, when we had concerts, I don't know if you guys did any concerts with.
Yeah, we got offered it for sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So there was a Christian promoter, Awakening Events, and we did several concerts with them, and we actually filled up that theater. Because the rumor was the last time it filled up was like Shrek in like 03 or Shrek 2 or something. I think it was 03.
The Legend of Shrek. Right.
Yeah, for sure. And I wasn't there, so I don't believe it. So I always like wanted to see, but it was filled up during the concert. It was really crazy, and we had about like 450 cars in there with that. So that's our capacity at the Joy-Lan, but we never have to worry about capacity at the Joy-Lan.
Now, do you guys have to push your show times? What's your traditional start? What's your flow as far as when you open?
Well, we were open anywhere like a month ago. It was 7:30 is the earliest we'll open. The latest we have to open during summer is like 8:55 as far as starting time.
It's the worst, right?
The weekend,
waiting for that sun.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know if this happens to y'all, but I was the one. And remember, as the customer, I think in Indiana it was like 9:30 and it was still light. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
We push that sometimes, and I keep bringing up internally. We programmed, because we thought it was a perfect double feature, we programmed Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 2 great family films that we couldn't start until 9:30, and they're both well over 2 hours long.
Yeah.
We're sitting there just like head in hands as Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is going until like 2 in the morning.
Yeah, we learn our lesson, right?
Yeah, and that's one thing as far as like combos and booking is like really frustrating when there's a brand new movie. So for example, right now we're playing Shazam and DC League of Super Pets. So Super Pets came out I think at the end of last year, and people will be like, why are you playing the kids movie second? Like it starts at 10:30. And I'm like, yeah, but this one, like Shazam just came out Friday.
You're like, it's been out for a year. Like,
I know. Like we played it when it opened like 6 months ago. So like, but
the run times
that's
now too. You feel that pain where it's like, does everything have to be 3 hours?
Yep. I know. Yeah. So sometimes we'll just like like John Wick, we're playing by itself.
Yeah. We
There
do
was
that on
another
Sundays and
long one.
Tuesdays now. We figured out we
Okay, yeah,
a lot of
Avatar,
people
super
on
long.
weekdays.
Are you doing
Yeah.
that as a single feature or a single movie
Yeah.
with 2 showtimes?
A single feature.
Makes sense. Makes total sense. Now, what do you guys do? Per person, carload? Do you do specialty pricing?
Yeah, per person. So 10 and over, right now it's $8, and 4 through 9 is $3, and under that is free. We've tried. We did some online ticketing for the last 2 years. We're not doing it right now, but we had like a carload price for online. It was like 23 after fees and stuff, and I don't know. It was just like so many people. We put it everywhere, like in the title, in the description. One ticket, one car, but you still almost on the
Everybody
weekend,
would roll
multiple
up.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, buy. Then they bought like 4 of them, and they're like, "Oh, I need a refund. I didn't know this was carload." So right now we're not doing any carload ticketing. And then people would either buy too many, or they'd be like, "Wow, this is really sketchy because if I buy a ticket online, it's $23, and I'm just here with my wife, and if I would have bought it at the door, it's $16." Like, yeah, so there's no winning with
Right.
with that. So
I mean, we find it's kind of a gimmick move to say like, hey, weekdays will do it because it draws more people in. It's a better deal.
yeah,
There's really no need to do it. It sounds like if you have the draw, the regular audience,
yeah.
Sounds like you guys do.
Yeah, the only the fascinating thing with it, which it's not a good reason to do it if you want to be like honest, but it's like so many people would buy them and not show up. And it's like you're making it was like if you had 5 people do it, like $100 a
Yep.
night, and people that aren't even there. And the problem is sometimes those people would come back way later and want a refund, and like then at that point it's too late. But like what? It's just like there is money on the table to be made if you're interested in that. Just because 95% of the people show up, and there's always some that don't show up. But definitely our emails, like our messages and our emails, like you can tell we have online ticketing. There's a lot more back and forth with people that are wondering, have questions about it, or bought too many, or can't come this night, can come another night, or it didn't work, or
I deal
whatever.
with so
And
much
so-
of that during our season.
Yeah.
A large part of what I
And-
do, and I don't mind. I mean, I like people to come and
Yeah.
not have a bad time and all that, but there is a ton of that. Exactly what you're saying. They buy tickets in advance, and then their circumstances change, and can they get a refund? Can they exactly what you're saying? So I feel your pain.
Yeah. And then the problem is, so we would use Eventbrite, which I know there are better ways to online ticket, but so Eventbrite would charge like $2 charge the customer, and when they requested a refund, even before the show started, we would grant that refund, but they wouldn't get the fee back, that $2 fee, that processing fee. And so they would sometimes come at us like, "Hey, I didn't get a full refund. I paid $23. I only got $20 back." And it was just so much back and forth. And yeah, I mean, I don't mind it either, but at the same time,
You have a
unless you're
theater to
gonna
run.
pay someone, yeah, exactly. You could spend an hour just doing, and it's constant. It's like as soon as someone gets you on Messenger or on email, they want to have a conversation, and it's like a lot of we're not planted at the desk all day, so yeah, makes it tough. So right now we're not doing online ticketing. I know most drive-ins do online ticketing or some form of it, but that's where I am with it. We just tell people, hey, if you want to come out, tickets are available the night of. And a lot of the allure of online ticketing is like, okay, well, we can guarantee our spot. Well, you're really not doing that because you have to get there early. And at least for us, the way we did it is like, hey, you can buy this ticket, but you still have to show up 30, 45 minutes early. And a lot of times they would read that part or whatever and if you were real busy, they would get mad that they bought this ticket. They thought you thought you could only sell a certain amount of tickets. Well, if you're not here on showtime, I'm going to sell this ticket to this person standing here. I have a ticket still outstanding that might or may not show up. So,
That's definitely the influence from the
indoor, where there you're truly renting a seat. It
Yeah.
makes sense to order ahead of time because you want to get that certain spot, whatever the case is.
Mhm.
We find that too with just the darkness of the picture quality. People they
Yeah.
want to turn up the brightness and
Oh,
adjust
yeah.
the projector, and it's like, yeah, these aren't televisions, but
Yeah.
well, I'm super curious because this is again the first time that we saw this open caption Wednesdays.
Mhm.
So I working in the indoor, it was the biggest challenge to cater to the blind and deaf audience. It was
Yep.
always an issue with devices and the things don't work and blah blah blah. And in the drive-in culture, it's almost something that's non-existent. So seeing
Yeah.
that is something really special. What brought that on and why you guys do that?
We've had a couple groups, groups of deaf folks that kind of reached out over the years, like, hey, do you guys like think about doing something like this? And so we devoted one of our least busy nights to trying that, and so we've been doing it a long time now, and it works. It's just like everything else, Some people really enjoy it. Some people show up, didn't
Not
know that it was
knowing.
happening, and they're like, what the
Yeah.
heck is this? And
Every time.
yeah, and usually those people will kind of understand. Some people, didn't know that it was going on, but don't mind it or kind of like it.
Yeah.
They may not have a problem hearing, but they, some lower voices, they may have trouble hearing. And so it's worked. It's not like, a huge moneymaker by any stretch.
I
It's
just
one
love
of
that you
those
guys
ways.
offer it. It's one of those
Yeah.
things, again, like the handicap accessibility for us. We would love to just be able to say, literally anybody can come and enjoy it. That's the goal.
Exactly.
And you have found a way to, invite that audience in and
Yeah.
not affect your business by putting it on a day that, like you said, doesn't hurt it.
Yeah. I'm sure if we did it every night, that would affect our business, but it doesn't, if you just look at numbers or whatever, you can't say, oh, we had captioning or we didn't have captioning. Like, it's not a huge game changer, but it's just a way to
It's a very cool
kind of
badge to wear.
accommodate that.
I'd be curious to
Yeah,
know
for
if any
sure.
other drive-in is doing it. You guys might be in a, on your own, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't heard of many. I don't think I've heard of any drive-ins doing it.
There you go. Another thing unique about you guys. Well, it sounds like you guys have a great support system there. And as much as we like talking about the drive-in landscape, it's also about the cinematic landscape. Do you have any neighboring indoor theaters? Do you find that some theaters are competition? Any small kind of movie houses that are within your circuit that you can go to if you don't get a DCP or something like that?
Yeah, let's see. So we have two major chains in town, CMX and Cinemark, and so they, I assume, do like cloud delivery on their drives.
Right.
We borrowed some from them. It's been a number of years. There's one in a neighboring town that we had to borrow a drive from probably like 3 or 4 years ago now. That is a smaller chain, but I wouldn't say they affect, like, we're not competitors with them. It's just a completely different experience. I find
It's another world. There's drive-in
Yeah.
people and there's indoor people, and sometimes that crosses over, but some people just prefer seeing movies outside. Some prefer to go to the multiplex. It's just
Yeah, for sure. And it depends, who you're with or whatever. If you got friends in town and they've never seen a drive-in, you might want to go out there. Or if you got your family with you, you may want to go to the drive-in when, it's like if you want to go on a date with your wife or girlfriend or whatever, it may make sense to go to the indoor theater because there won't be mosquitoes the whole time. probably a little less on like a first date can probably go wrong at an indoor theater. I would think there's a lot that can go wrong in a drive-in, especially if you're not prepared or know what you're doing. So it might be the safer bet to go to the indoor. But and there's people that do both. It just kind of depends what mood you're in, or if you want to see the movie early. Obviously, we can't compete with that. So,
Right.
I'm sure. I've never done like a full blown analysis on how many people we might have if those chains weren't there or whatever. But I find like
I'm always curious more on the connection again with more those smaller houses. We know you can't run over to Cinemark and be like, hey, but it's nice to have at least somebody. I forget who we talked to, Mark, but they were the only game in town. It was like, if you want to go see another movie, period, you got to drive an hour. So it really informs, I think, the demand for the drive-in as well.
Yeah. And like I say, if I'm on the way to work and I pass CMX and their parking lot's loaded because they've got Avatar, like my parking lot's probably gonna be loaded too. Like, you know,
right.
Or if they have no one in their parking lot because there's nothing playing. Like, so it's kind of, you know, like,
it's that gauge on the way in.
Yeah, it's good to see them do well, and because I think it benefits all of us. It's not like, I don't think anyone believes that if, you know, they went away that there would still be like an exhibition industry. They're the ones that kind of make all the big bucks to keep the industry going. So that's kind of how I think about them.
Totally.
But we have a small kind of movie house downtown Lakeland. It's a nonprofit, and they do, you know, they show a bunch of retros and stuff, and their screen's pretty small. It's a really beautiful theater. It was built in the 30s, but it definitely like wasn't built as like a modern day movie theater, so it definitely doesn't have all those amenities. Like the screen's pretty small and stuff like that, but it definitely is a really cool place to see a movie. But we haven't really done anything with them as far as like sharing anything.
It's just always fascinating to me to know the, you know, kind of cinematic layout, because growing up everybody had their indoor, they had their drive-in, they had their preferences, where now sometimes it's, you know, they're few and far between, and it's like, hey, we got Regal and that's it, and we're the only other game in town. Or I like that there is still a draw for a smaller indoor single screen house from back in the day. It informs the film fan base in the area. So
Yep. And to be honest, the like, you know, if we needed a drive or if we needed something, we would call another drive-in, like one of the other two drive-ins. And
you're like, I'll just go to my other drive-in.
That, but also the two other drive-ins, the Ruskin and the Ocala drive-in. Like, I'm super, you know, close with them, and so we'll text back and forth if we need anything, and can help anyone at any time. So
that's great. I mean, it sounds like cool you have a nice circuit and somebody to lean on, which is good.
Yeah.
Before I kick it over to Mark with some questions, I'm curious, how do you break up your time between the two theaters? What's your kind of role there? Are you running projectors? It sounds like you have your finger in every pie.
Yeah, and I haven't mentioned one pie. I actually work for Publix full time, so I definitely have a lot going on. But so the drive-in is like a second job / hobby to me. So, but I'm still always doing something with it, even if I'm not there. There's always something to do, or something on your mind, or something to be fixed, or someone to call. So like I say, I go back to being fortunate enough to have the supervisor over both theaters, and then we have a manager, obviously, at both theaters too, and that is how it's possible. But you know, I work only, like, my office is like 5 minutes from Silvermoon, so I go out there pretty regularly after work or during lunch or before work sometimes, and then the Joy-Lan, it's only about an hour away, so I'll get up there. But you know, it's fun, and then our swap shops, you know, it's fun to just be a customer out there and
I was gonna say,
check out what's going on.
Draw. I'm a huge hipster and have that bug where if you can go and get a steal, you know, especially in a drive-in, it's mixing my two loves together.
For sure. Yeah. No, our swap shop. I really like it, and other swap shops that are at drive-ins, because what makes them so neat is that you can't like. Well, there are some drive-ins that have like storage where you can rent like a shipping container. Like some drive-ins have shipping containers, you can rent them. But like with ours, you know, everyone has to clean up everything at the end of the day. So it's not like you're seeing. Sometimes you see the same stuff twice, but because they have to clean it all up at the end of the day and bring it back out, a lot of times you get a lot of fresh stuff, and you get a lot of people
fresh
that
goods.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
come
not
every
stale,
week,
like,
you know, you never know what you're gonna see.
Yeah, and there's always people that are just trying to get rid of stuff. There's always a good mix of regular people that reserve by the month and people that are just out there daily, either trying to sell like something they've made or something they're just trying to clear out the house. And I think Sundays are big days because people like garage sale on Saturday. So a lot of our vendors like go garage selling and get some of their inventory that way and sell it out at the swap shop. But
it's a culture, you know, it's a perfect crossover with the driving culture and a perfect use of your lot when you're not able to show movies. It's a no-brainer.
Exactly. Really. Yeah.
Well, Mark, any questions for Chip? This has been great, by the way.
Well, you know, one of the things I was doing before we got on the air was to look at your theater through Google image search, which is a wonderful modern technology, and see, you know, where you're located and what the layout looks like. And it looks like for the swap shop, you have a pretty sizable covered area for that on the lot. And does that also serve to sort of separate the two screens to a degree?
It does. The problem with that, as far as the drive-in side, is that everyone will want to park over there during the rain. When it's raining, and we call it sound wars, where you know it echoes. You know, if you have the radio on one side of it, like it'll echo over to the other side. And so we have employees park on one side of it, usually on side two, unless if we think side two is going to be busy, we park them on side one, because otherwise, if you have customers on side, you know, watching side one and side two both under that canopy, it gets ugly very very fast.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, that was built, I think, in like 96, 97 for the swap shop. And so we do have quite a few vendors under there, and it's our most popular place to set up, especially during summer. We can fit probably about 40 vendors under there. If shade. You use all, exactly. Yeah, shade, rain, everything. And so it would be super cool to have more of those, but I got one priced out. Like when you hear the prices that like we paid for stuff, you know, 20, 30 years ago, it's just unbelievable what stuff costs now. Like I would love another canopy like that, but just how much it would cost, like you would have
let me take out a small mortgage, right?
Yeah. It's like you would have to sell as many tickets as you sold for like 30 years at the flea market to even recoup your money. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, we do have that little canopy area for the swap shop. And I think part of I don't know if it's still there on the aerial thing, but the Funland Drive-In in Tampa that's no longer operating, in fact, it's been leveled. It's not even a swap shop anymore. They had a bunch of canopies. And so at one time we shared, you know, that guy and my grandfather had a shared ownership in that drive-in. And I think that's kind of what we were going for, is like, because they were definitely kind of like more swap shop focused. They were open in swap shop for 4 days, and it was a really big, successful swap shop. And they had probably like 4 or 5 of those big canopies. And I noticed they were made by the same company. That's where this theory comes from. And I think they were probably built around the same time with the intention of like, hey, these canopies are really helping our swap shop business. We should have them. And it definitely is awesome. And I definitely wish I had a lot more, but it does take away some space. You know, even if we put another one on the other side of the snack bar, if you're looking at Google Earth, you would lose some theater space. You'd lose some parking because it is pretty wide, but yeah, so.
And I see that you have a dedicated employee who's in charge of the swap shop. We were talking to Krista out at the Santee Drive-In in California, and we had asked, like, how do you manage staff with the swap shop during the day and the movies at night? And she was like, no, it's a separate crew entirely.
Yeah.
for your swap shop, do you have the snack bar open or a food truck or anything to make a little additional money beyond the vendor fees, or is it just the vendor fees?
So, yep, first off, it is a different manager. She actually is the relief manager on the 2 days that our theater manager is off. So she manages the theater. Yeah, she manages the theater on Tuesday, Wednesday. So she's definitely familiar enough with the theater business that, like, she's able to, if someone comes to swap shop and is like, hey, what do you guys plan? Or, hey, how does the movie work? She can answer those questions because she manages it for 2 days a week. Since I think the swap shop had started, we'd had the snack bar, and I remember as an employee, like, it was, no one wanted to work in there with the breakfast because, it's a drive-in snack bar. So it's obviously more focused layout-wise, everything else on the theater. And so, we stuck a grill in there and started making breakfast. It's not comfortable during summer. It got super hot in there. And who wants to wake up at 4 a.m. because we open at 5 at the swap shop? Who wants to wake up at 4 a.m.? Most of your star employees work at the theater. And so who wants to wake up at 4 a.m. to work and cooking bacon for 4 hours at the swap shop for minimum wage? So we got rid of that probably 3 years ago, I want to say. And a lot of the driver was labor. It was super hard to find labor. If you found them, you're going to have a call off. And so service starts to suffer. But the other piece that was happening was just the price of food got crazy. And so at the swap shop, unlike, at the drive-in to a certain extent, but the swap shop, people are there looking for bargains. They may not. They're
like $6 for a breakfast sandwich.
Yeah.
How's 4?
Exactly. Yeah, they'd be trying to negotiate.
Haggling you.
Like, yeah. Like, I'll pay you an extra $1 under the table to put some bacon in there. I get it. Like, I'm a customer of the swap shop too. I like a good deal. And by the time, our labor costs were going up substantially, our egg, bacon costs were going up substantially. It just turned into, and the other problem was that, like, cooking bacon, ton of grease. Then you'd get your swap shop crew and your drive-in crew, and they'd be like, "Hey, swap shop left this here, or our stuff is greasy and they didn't clean this." Long story short, we got rid of that, and now we have a couple. You have to buy a special ticket and license and stuff, but we have a couple food trucks and food vendors that sell at the swap shop just on their own. So they just pay us to set up.
Fills the void,
Yeah, that's worked out much better. And it like cut our staff down in half because we would have to have, 3-4 people in the kitchen at our peak hours, it's like 8 or 9 a.m. to make a breakfast because it's very labor intensive. We would have eggs, toast, grits, bacon, potatoes, stuff like that. So, if people are ordering eggs, they're cooked to order. People want eggs all sorts of different ways. And so you would at least, you had to have a cashier, cook, someone prepping the food, just kind of putting it all together. So you didn't need 3 or 4 people in there. And it just got to a point where it wasn't sustainable. And so after you got rid of that, you really didn't need too many people at the swap shop. You need the manager and pretty much someone to sell tickets, and the manager can kind of ride around the golf cart, make sure everything's okay, make sure people are in their spots, not selling stuff they shouldn't sell, and following the rules. So it's definitely cut down a lot on our labor there. And so, but that's at both places too. At the Joy-Lan, we got rid of our snack bar probably a year ago. Same result. It's been much easier. The kitchen's been cleaner. We don't technically sell prepared food now. Everything, with the eggs and stuff, there was a bunch of food safety stuff. You had raw bacon, raw eggs, like you had to cook the stuff. And so our inspections have been a lot more easier just because you don't have all those different food stuffs in the snack bar. The other thing was space. Y'all can tell I really was excited to stop selling breakfast.
You're like, finally, if I never see an egg in that place again.
yeah. You storing those eggs.
I could only imagine.
Bacon,
that's our biggest issue is
Yeah.
space, and to
Yeah,
add
it
another
was-
meal on that, forget it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not stuff you can sell in both places. Like people don't want to buy eggs and bacon and potatoes at the drive-in. Like that stuff you can't really cross merchandise. It was its own separate thing. So once we got rid of that, we got so much more space. So anyway, no more breakfast. It was a good breakfast, but I was happy to see it go.
Anything else, Mark?
One thing I wanted to have you describe, as this is, a very non-visual medium we're working in right now, is your entrance. I was looking again, Google Street View. You can literally like drive all the way around the drive-in and look at it from outside. But your entrance is so gorgeous, and it really harkens back to, I don't know if that's original to the theater or if that came along later, but if you can describe for people what it looks like when you first drive up to the gate, it's pretty wonderful.
So we have our main roadside marquee with neon, and it actually used to blink, and people really like the blinking. So it's blue and a yellow neon, and it would blink in Silvermoon, and it would be like very bright and wonderful, and it was actually like a watch motor that somehow like made it blink, because when you stood outside of it, you could hear the clicking. Like it sounded like a clock, and it's like some really old contraption that made it click, blink. But it doesn't blink anymore, and there's a reason. The reason is Disney actually, like, I thought it was a joke. This guy like just randomly came up and he's like, "Hey, I'm with Disney Scouting Film Locations," and I'm like, "Oh, shut up." But it actually turns out he actually was serious, and they filmed a very, very small portion of a movie called The One and Only Ivan. So they filmed the scene where like Bryan Cranston was in it. He drove this Mustang kind of through our entrance, and so there was a scene out there, and they had a scene very briefly where they were watching a film in the theater. And so we were super excited about that, but it went to Disney Plus and they wouldn't let us play it, and I was so upset. But
oh my
anyway,
gosh! Well,
yeah,
bragging rights, you can say drove through the gate
for sure. Yeah, I know it was super cool. And he was like super nice and really loved the drive-in. Like I never give away speakers, but because like we only have so many, and once they're gone, they're gone. But he like asked me for a speaker because we took out our speaker poles, but they set up a couple temporary ones just for the shot. And he was like, "Hey, I have a car collection at home. I think this would be really cool in there." And I'm like, "Okay, fine, you can have one." So because he was like really passionate, he was like really into the drive-in. It was super cool.
My gosh, it's a story you can tell the grandkids. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I really I hadn't seen Breaking Bad when he came out, but I knew him from Seinfeld, and he was the dentist on Seinfeld for like a couple episodes. And so I was like, "Hey, I think it's so cool that you're the dentist on Seinfeld." And he like said a couple lines that he said like in the show. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool." But anyway, he got a speaker. But anyway, they didn't want that marquee to blink in the shot, and so we called the sign company out, and they made it stop blinking. And I've never liked the blinking as a customer, because while it's super cool from the outside, I always noticed when I was watching the movie that on the power lines and the power pole next to the marquee, like you would see that in your peripheral, like this blinking light every second. That was super annoying and always annoyed me as a patron. So it no longer blinks. It can blink, but we just have the blinking off. So there's that roadside marquee that's large. It says Silvermoon, and it says what we're playing. And then we have a couple other neon signs on the back of the screen tower that say Silvermoon Drive-In, and then like our marquee with the show times and stuff is kind of on the left as you drive in. And then you pass our first box office, which was the original box office until I think the late 90s. That's not our primary box office now, and the reason is like traffic would stack up, like you'd fit
you got barely
in your driveway.
Yeah.
So we extended the driveway all the way down to what is now our box office, so we can fit probably about 40 cars on property instead of like 4. But we kept that there just because like it kind of looks cool on the outside, and it looks like more complete, and it helps block some of the light as people are driving in. But yeah, so we added some of the mark. Not all of the signage is original. The only one that's been there a long time is the main roadside marquee that blinked. A couple of some of the neon got put in probably 15, 20 years ago, because I've seen some pictures. Kind of the one that shows the showtime was just like a board, you know, it was just like almost like a piece of plywood that was painted and
Yeah.
had red leathering. So that one was probably installed probably maybe 15, 20 years ago. And we've kind of kept it up and maintained. And it's just really neat driving into the theater. But the one drawback is it does put off a lot of light. So as a customer, you like when you talk about ambient light, like we're kind of doing it to ourselves, at least in the front, because it's right behind the screen tower.
I love a classic built-out screen tower.
Yeah.
And, you know, for folks who want to get that vision, you know, the screen faces the lot, and then on the back side, that's where your signage is. And you have almost like a almost 3-story kind of level with the marquee signage on it. It's stunning. And one of those things that, you know, when people remodel, revamp, upgrade, usually that neon goes out first because it's expensive to maintain.
It is. But and then people want to put like digital marquees out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm personally not a fan. Operationally, I'm sure they're much easier, but
Right.
I've seen some drive-ins with it, and it's not my style. I like the old entrance because
Classic.
I mean, I'm all about innovating, but like, I don't know, it just kind of looks like a bank or something that's showing like the temperature and the time. And again, that's just my opinion. Like,
you are
I don't know if y'all have
totally
it.
right. The drive-in is inherently nostalgic and classic.
Yeah.
And the more you can root your business in that and your decisions in that, I think the better off that you are. You know, we've seen some new pushing the edge drive-ins that are trying to, you know, work with LCD screens. It's almost too far off of the traditional drive-in map.
Yeah, and so and I'm all about doing some stuff like that, but yeah, it costs a little more probably in the long run to maintain the neon, and it's a pain to change it every week. You know, the films and the coming soons, but like that to me, the entrance, like that's what people see when they drive by. And when they think drive-in theater, they usually think of, you know, some nostalgic type place. And so that's why we keep it and why I'm happy with it and why I don't want to change it. But yeah, there are some cool marquees out there. I love a good
Yours
marquee.
is choice, you know, and it's a bit for us the same thing. It's a built-in photo op. People stop
yeah
all the time. It's always there. It's always a draw any time of the day. And it becomes part of the landscape. I mean, that's clear with yours, but certainly ours as well, where, you know, we lost our marquee. It blew down several years back, and the township and everybody, fans, raised the money so fast to get that thing back up because it means so much to them as much as it does to us. So, well, Chip, this has been a fantastic chat. We absolutely love whenever we can get somebody who's so like all of us owners. We're really living the same life, just in different areas of the country. So it's fantastic. Before we let you go, can you give people the socials, places to find you, so that way when they come through Florida, they can give you a visit?
Yeah, for sure. Our website, silvermoondrivein.com. We have Facebook, Silvermoon Drive-In. We have the Instagram, also Silvermoon Drive-In. And like I say, if you're in the Orlando, Tampa area, you're out of money, you're bored, or you want to do something a little different than Universal or Disney, we're right down the road, right between Tampa and Orlando, right off I-4, only like 5 minutes off the interstate. So super easy to get to. And yeah, so that's the Silvermoon. Dade City, the Joy-Lan is like I said, about an hour north of us. But yeah, check out. I mean, you unfortunately could hit all the Florida drive-ins in like one night practically. So there aren't many of us left. But
well, for us drive-in fans, you know, it's convenient. It's sad for the culture, but you know, we can make a road trip out of it, and we can come down and hit the swap meet and watch a movie with you, catch up. and go check out the other theaters as well. That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Chip, for giving us the time. We wish you nothing but luck with your continuing season. I guess that's the case.
It's always seasoned.
Yeah, and really look forward to coming down and seeing the place in person one day.
All right. Yeah, that'd be great. So thanks for having me on, and I really appreciate it.
You got
appreciate
it, man.
what y'all are doing for the drive-in community, and we definitely need more of it because everyone, we're all different, but we're all very similar as far as the stuff we go through, and we all definitely want to see each other succeed.
It's
that's
a community,
the cool part about it.
It's just like back in the day. It's okay if our circuit is just a little more spread out. I think we can all help each other. And even if that is just shining that light and saying, hey, when that name comes up, we could say those are friends of ours. We love what they do down there,
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure y'all are familiar with it, but there is an organization, Utah, probably I think they have over 100 drive-ins. And so I'm a member of that group and really enjoy that. I've met a lot of cool people over the years through that organization. We have a ton of ideas and stuff like that always spread around. So they meet in Orlando each year, so it makes it super easy for me.
Yeah, I'd say so. How about that?
I've got no
That'll
excuse,
have to be it. For whatever reason, the last couple of years we haven't been able to make it due to scheduling and timing.
Okay, so y'all
we're gonna have to come down. Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have to come down
cool.
and we'll shake hands and we'll get to spend some time together.
They came out. Yeah, so they came out probably about a month ago after the convention to check us out. Probably about.
Oh, that's great. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, they all come to see you because they're in town.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's killer.
We got some newer projectors, so they wanted to check them out. So,
are you rocking laser? Not to ask you another question.
Yeah.
Oh boy, look out! The future's here.
I know. Yeah,
man, I'll tell you, that's the new thing. I just got out of the AMC game when we were making the shift and gutting everything and putting in all the lasers. It's the future, man. The lasers. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Makes a difference. So we're still on at the Joy-Lan, but Silvermoon, we did that. We were one of the first to go digital in 2011, I think. So we were starting to have some major problems and kind of had to make decisions as far as what are we going to do with these projectors? Are we going to put a bunch of money in them and hope light engines and stuff like that stay same, or are we going to invest in
make the investment? It's the right move.
Yeah,
you can never go wrong. I'm sure the amount of people that you draw off of that difference in quality of picture it'll pay dividends.
Yeah. Because it started to get to the point where because over time our Christie, we had 2230s. They were getting
obsolete.
That I don't want to bring up Batman, but movies like that, I would be out there and I'd be like, I would not pay $7 to watch this because, like I say, we do have some ambient light around us. You could tell by the Google Earth that we got a bunch of neighbors. So I don't know. I was just I think people are getting so more and more used to these perfect picture and all this stuff it was a decision we had to make. And
us running 35 millimeter, it's we're even more limited, where we always preach it. There's an appreciation to the preservation, but it is not your digital systems, and for a lot of reasons that's better, but
that's
it's
super
aesthetic,
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think we're the last full-time 35 millimeter drive-in left in the whole country. So trying to keep it alive, but it's strange because it started as a necessity. We just couldn't afford to upgrade and decided to stick to our guns, and now it's our calling. So you never really know when that road opens. You never really know what it's going to lead to. But for us, it was the best decision ever. So
that's cool.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Well, Chip, this has been great, man. We could talk to you for hours. I feel like this is, you are literally one of us, like a crew member. So fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
again, I hope we can get down there. I hope people fall in love with you. It's not hard to fall in love with the drive-in experience, but
For
got
sure.
so much going on for you at the Silvermoon, and we love you, brother. We really appreciate it.
All righty. I
All right.
appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
You got it, brother. And on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.